Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2024 release Woman of the Hour. It's a Netflix film, so if you have Netflix, you can just watch it. You don't have to pay anything. If you don't have Netflix, you gotta sign up for it, unfortunately. But anyway, this one is directed by Anna Kendrick. Yes, the famous actress Anna Kendrick. And I have to say, I'm just gonna say right now, after saying her name, she did a very good job with this film. Very good job with this film. The cinematography is looking good. The direction was quite well done, and I'm impressed. I would be interested if she would stick with the, I guess, kind of horror adjacent, or even go fully into horror type film. I would watch what she's putting out. But directed by Anna Kendrick, this was her first feature film. Written by Ian McDonald, who wrote the film Some Freaks, who I think did a pretty good job with the script. And again, it's on Netflix. So, quick synopsis of this one. This is based on a true story film. It is about the serial killer Rodney Alcala, who I did already know about going into this film because I listen to true crime podcasts. So I know a lot of people have heard about this, and it is focused primarily on this character played by Anna Kendrick, who ends up going on to the dating game from the 70s, because it is set in the 70s, and how this serial killer actually ends up being one of the contestants, one of the suitors on the dating game. So this was an actual thing that happened. So, and then it's this question of like, what, does she end up picking him? Is she in danger? That whole type of thing. Because it's not just about that, though. They're showing you kind of other things he's done. They're doing these kind of flashbacks and showing you what's happened, and then they give you information past the dating game. So it's kind of like a jumble of chronology with the film. And it does end up working, though. It feels a little bit messy at times, but it does end up working. And one of the big questions that I had going into watching the film was, how are they going to make this interesting when it seems from the trailer they're going to focus so much on just the dating game? Like, is it just going to be them focusing on the fact that she's potentially in danger because of this dating game? Or are they going to like stretch this game out so much? But they didn't, and having those flashbacks and showing more of kind of the personal life of Alcala and the personal lives of the women who were victims of Alcala really added a lot to the film and made it significantly more interesting. And I will tell you up front, even though I'm going to tell you more about what I did and didn't like about the film, I overall did quite like this film. I've seen some people really not liking it, some people loving it, and I'm not quite in the middle of that. I'm a little more to the loving it side. I didn't love it, but I did really like it. So anyway, getting more into it. The opening scene sets the stage very well, but also is one of those quintessential, what is this person thinking type moments. We get those in horror movies so much. We're so used to that there's a character doing something and you're like, what are they doing? Or why are they not doing something? And it just seems like a convenience out of writing type thing, because that's just how they wanted the scene to go, not necessarily how someone would actually act. So I think it puts a red flag up in that opening sequence. Like, is it going to be this type of film where you're just going to be kind of frustrated by these things? But that's the only time it happens, in my opinion. So I was like, okay, I can get past that now. But it is a little bit annoying that it starts that way, honestly. But it is a good way to set the stage for the film based off everything else going on in that sequence. You really feel frustration for the main character pretty early on. They do a very good job of endearing the main character to you. Not just the main character, but a lot of the characters in this film. They do a really good job of making them feel very real, have enough depth to them where you can actually understand who they are, connect with them, and that speaks to the writing prowess that's on display here. But you really do feel this frustration that this main character keeps going through, because she's trying to, she's in California and she's trying to make it in acting, and she's having struggles with that. And you feel this frustration as you're trying to go on this journey with her to try and make that happen. It's very clear immediately that this is going to be a focus. This is going to focus a lot on awful feeling of living in a male-dominated society in the 70s. Yes, that is something, and I'm saying that because it is like it's not even subtext, it's not a thematic thing. Like, it literally is in your face with this film, which is one of the things I really ended up loving about the film, because it's a very different take on these type of serial killer based on true events films, where the people say like most films are shot through the male gaze. Well, this one's obviously shot through the female gaze because it's done by Anna Kendrick, but also that it's more focused on the victims as well, and that it's just a more soft, more nuanced approach than what I'm used to seeing, or what most of us are used to seeing, and it just really worked. And going along with that whole frustration thing I was talking about, connecting with Anna Kendrick's character, there's also the frustration of just that whole situation of living in this male dominated society and being a woman and trying to get somewhere, and there just being the expectations of like, you have to act a certain way if you're a woman and you want to get ahead, or you have to look a certain way, or you're also not going to be taken very seriously, those types of things, which ends up working into other aspects of the film as well, but I'll just kind of leave that there. It's shot well, and there are some interesting angles and movements. There's one scene in particular where it's one of the flashbacks to what Alcala was doing, that is shot through a window, through like a like a sky view window in an apartment, and that was particularly an inspired shot, very interesting looking. So those types of things, when they pop up in the film, really get my attention and make me think, oh, this is, a bit more creative with the camera work. Because there are plenty of movies out there where you're just like, yes, cinematography was just very, it was just very, like, normal. It was very bland. Not the case here. They did a pretty good job. You do start to feel like, quote, how are they going to make this more interesting than the real life story? Yes, I kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, but I was having that question, especially when I wasn't fully understanding how they were mixing up the past and the present with how they were telling the story. So eventually you do end up being able to settle into that, and then you're just like, okay, I see how they're going to kind of flesh things out a little bit more, make this a much more robust story. The score is pretty good, and really helps with making scenes feel creepy when they otherwise would not feel creepy. This is one of those films where if you would replace the score or take the score out altogether, it would detract from the film, because there are these moments where, there's this Alcala character, and that things about him, but it not just like having him in lesser threatening scenes. It's not enough to just have him there. Like, having that nicely constructed score that's at the right level, not screaming at you, just gives you this little extra, like, creeped out feeling, like, ooh, yeah, something's off, things aren't right, anything could happen type thing. So I think that worked out really well. There also are some solid humor moments in this, which I did not expect would be in the film. And it's kind of a tightrope to walk, because with a subject matter like this based on true events, you don't want to go too much to the humor, because it can feel like you're kind of making fun of things too much. And it wasn't too much. They did a good job with just doing a little bit, basically. It's a pretty slow film for the most part, but it is still quite engaging because of the characters and how interesting they are and how interesting their interactions are, and the dialogue. The dialogue is very well written, which is something that's typically pretty hard to pull off, in my opinion. I've written some scripts for like independent, no budget independent stuff, and dialogue is always hard. It's always a very hard thing, especially when you have to write a bunch of interesting characters with good dialogue, and this one did a great job with that. Like, genuinely interesting characters, lots of interesting characters in this, and that's what really moves things forward for me with the film. There are some scenes. Sorry, there are some scenes that ended up building really good tension and maintaining them, so that's great. I didn't know how it was going to be, if it was just going to be a lot of those scenes where the score is doing a lot for you, but it's kind of like low key, like scary, creepy. But no, they go for some that are a little more intense as well. And there actually isn't a lot shown of the actual murders that happen, but it is still done very effectively. And I think one of the most interesting things about this film is that it demonstrates that you don't have to go for the gore, you don't have to go for the brutality. It doesn't have to be this like unflinching scene of just horrible stuff in order for you to get it, in order for it to feel terrible and feel off, and for you to just get an air of brutality and awfulness to the whole thing. And in the end, the last thing I'd say was they give you information on what really happened, like real life case with Alcala. So that's always good to have that at the end with films like this. So I did quite like this film. Out of 5 stars, half stars in play, I'm going to give it a quite good 3.5-star rating. But I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Go ahead and put it down in the comments if you've seen the film. We can talk spoilers, totally fine. Do me a quick favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would appreciate that. If you want to pitch in monetarily, I do have memberships available. There's a link in the description where you can check out what you get for a nominal fee each month. And then you can hit the thumbs up to help me with that YouTube algorithm on any of my videos, including this one. And you can also hit the notification bell button if you want to know when I'm putting up new videos. But regardless, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate that. And until next time, keep it brutal.